bahkan untuk segera memasuki ruangan. Nah, bagi teman-teman yang mungkin bukan mengambil atau tidak mengambil mata kuliah hukum ketenagakerjaan, tidak masalah karena kalian tetap diperbolehkan untuk masuk dan menikmati kuliah umum hari ini. Begitu ya, saya akan hanya memberikan itu saja rules-nya hari ini gitu ya, presensi, kemudian di pertengahan mungkin nanti kami akan memanggil nama secara random untuk make sure kalian memang tetap menjaga komitmen untuk di sini, karena saya lihat kayaknya A sampai E ini harusnya mahasiswanya nggak cuma segini gitu ya. Jadi dan tidak ada yang presensi via YouTube ya, nggak ada izin ibu absen di YouTube, nggak ada. Jadi semuanya harus wajib hadir luring seperti yang sudah diumumkan. Hari ini perkuliahan umum akan disampaikan oleh Mr. Ippei Tsuruga mengenai social protection dan akan dimoderatori oleh Mbak Nabila Rizwa yang mungkin kalian kenal dengan tweet-tweetnya ya, seleb tweet banget gitu. Oke, kita langsung mulai saja. Saya mungkin mengundang Mbak Nabila Rizwa dulu, monggo Mbak, silahkan kemana lah terserah Mbak. Ya. Kemudian baru manggil Pak Ippei. Enjoy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang teman-teman. I speak in bahasa first, it's fine. Saya akan memoderatori dalam bahasa Indonesia, tapi nanti Pak Ippei akan pakai bahasa Inggris. Tapi kalau misalnya nanti ternyata perlu ditranslate pakai bahasa Indonesia, saya akan chip in, diperbolehkan katanya. Oke, karena sudah diperkenalkan tadi oleh Mbak Nailul, terima kasih banyak teman-teman Bapak dan Ibu yang hadir pada siang hari ini. Ini adalah kuliah umum hukum ketenagakerjaan yang dilakukan tidak di awal kuliah tapi agak sebelum UTS gitu ya, biar kita agak beda sama yang lain. Kali ini kita akan kuliah umum dengan tema jaminan sosial yang akan dibawakan oleh Pak Ippei Tsuruga. Pak Ippei adalah Social Protection Specialist dari International Labour Organization. Jauh-jauh ke sini nanti beliau katanya akan memperkenalkan diri sendiri, jadi saya nggak akan memperkenalkan terlalu panjang. Nanti setelah di akhir, setelah paparan akan ada tanya jawab, sepertinya akan ada tanya jawab di tengah-tengah juga. Jadi kalau misalnya ada teman-teman yang mau bertanya, silahkan bertanya. Kalau mau bertanya pakai bahasa Indonesia boleh, kalau mau bertanya pakai bahasa Inggris juga boleh, meskipun kuliahnya dilakukan dalam bahasa Inggris. Jadi nanti kalau tanya pakai bahasa Indonesia nggak masalah, nanti akan saya translate. Tidak berpanjang-panjang, langsung saya persilahkan for Pak Ippei, you may start. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can understand my bahasa English. My bahasa in Indonesia is not very good, so I would like to speak in English. Is that okay? Okay, nice to meet you. My name is Ippei Tsuruga. Again, I work for Indonesia almost 5 years. I started working for Indonesia in 2018. Then I physically moved to Jakarta in 2020. So I'm still new in Indonesia, and but my work is based in Jakarta, where all the ministries, government offices are there. And my job in Jakarta is to provide advice to the government of Indonesia, workers leaders, and the business leaders to improve Jaminan Sosial, social security. But I think very few of you may know what is social security and why it is important, and international concepts. So at the end of my talk today, I hope you will become confident to talk about Jaminan Sosial, social security, to your parents, to your friends. So I'm not going to talk about anything difficult, but please raise any hands or ask a question in Bahasa Indonesia. So I think Nadia can help me interpret Okay? Yeah, my slide is very small, so it's better you have your phone and download PPT. But I would like to cover first, do you know does anyone know the ILO, International Labour Organization? Do you know the ILO? You know? I don't see any hands, but I hope you know. Okay? The International Labour Organization was established in 1919, in Geneva, Switzerland, after the World War after the World War I. And working on improving the labor conditions, working conditions, social security conditions. And do you know the member, how many countries participate in the ILO? There are about 190 countries are member of the ILO. What is the difference between the membership of the United Nations and the ILO? In the United Nations, each country has one vote. Each country has a voting right, one vote in the conference. Every year in Geneva, all the member states, 190 member states, send 4 representatives to the conference, annual conference of the ILO, including 2 government officials, 1 workers leader, 1 employers leader. So the ILO's membership is not only from the governments, but also workers and employers representatives. And then, what is the role of the ILO's conference there? Every year they meet. One of the major important role there is that these 4 representatives from 190 countries discuss and develop the international labor standards. What is that? For example, the minimum wage. How much wage should be paid at least in each country? How it should be calculated? Or if it's social security, what is the criteria for Jaminan Kesehatan Nasional, health insurance, medical care? So these kind of very detailed policy discussions need to happen there with the 4 representatives from 190 countries. And then they agree on the provisions of the international conventions. We call it convention. There are 191 conventions. Conventions is international treaties. So once the countries sign, ratify the conventions, the ILO member states, all member states will start to monitor if the country that ratifies the convention comply with the agreed provisions. If not, the ILO will monitor and point out, you need to change your national law and then improve the labor conditions. So this is the linkage between the ILO's work and your country's, the national laws, okay? So that's the linkage with the ILO and the Indonesia. Then, I cannot move this, but yeah, thank you. Then what is social protection? Do you know anything about social protection? Jaminan Sosial, Bantuan Sosial. There are many different terminologies if you see on the media. So I will explain that a little bit today. But can you help moving? I don't think this works, yeah? Yeah, thank you. Internationally, we don't have any difference between social security, social protection. Next, please. According to the ILO's international social security standards, at least any countries should have 9 social security benefits. What does it mean? The states, governments need to provide the benefits from childbirth to death. So if you become pregnant, you should have entitlement to maternity leave. And then who will pay during maternity leave? Employers cannot pay because you don't work, okay? But the country, government need to pay some of the salary, otherwise the mother cannot feel free. They don't have a security, income security. So the country needs to cover that benefit. That is maternity benefit, for example. If you become ill during work, you cannot work. So you are worried about your income. Then the country should cover during your sick leave. Okay, so you can take sick leave. You don't have to come to work, but you still have some income, like a 50% of your monthly income. Okay, if your employer fire you, dismiss you, and then you need to look for a job, you need some income for living. Then, in Indonesia last year, Jaminan kehilangan pekerja started, unemployment benefit, job loss guarantee. That is one of the scheme. So during your job search to next job, you don't have to worry about your daily needs. You still have some regular income from BPJS Ketenagakerjaan, BPJS TK, in this case, if you are a member of BPJS. That is another one. If you get injured during your work, it's not your fault, but you may become disabled. You lose your hands, arms, legs. How can you continue earning the same amount of money or more money in the future to take care of your family? Maybe you cannot because you have some disabilities because of work injuries. In that case, in Indonesia, there's a scheme called JKK under BPJS Ketenagakerjaan. In English, Employment Injury Insurance, injury benefits. So Social Security can help you earn some money even though you cannot work during your rehabilitation. Or if you unfortunately died because of the accidents, the Social Security should help your widowers or orphans. So you don't, of course it's better you don't die in an accident, but what if that happens? Someone needs to take care. That is the role of the Social Security system. So this is the different concept from the private insurance, right? Because private insurance is a contract between you and the company. But this is more larger contract, social contract with the government, and then help each other. This is the concept of Social Security. Next, please, Pa. We call it the risk in English. I don't know in Indonesia language. For example, you don't probably, it is a good news if you get pregnant and then have babies, right? But from Social Security experts' perspective, we call it a risk of losing income. Because you don't know when you get pregnant, right? You don't know when you get injured. You don't know how many years you will live after retirement. So you always feel fears if you don't have any income sources in the future. You need to continue work to earn money. If this is only the source of your income, you may feel a little bit insecure because you need to think about who will pay. If I get pregnant, take maternity leave, who will pay? Right? So we call it the risk. All these kind of life risk, because it costs. It increases expenditure. It reduces your income. Okay? And it happens for everyone. So it's common risk for everyone, every citizens. And it happens unexpectedly. You don't know when it will happen. Next, please. So the concept of social security is to pool the risks with everyone. You know the swimming pool? So workers, employers, and the government pool the risk. What does it mean? If you start working, you receive a monthly salary, right? Then you will see on your payslip some minus. The government, BPJS, will take some money from your payslip, so you don't actually receive that money, but you see minus already deducted. That is called a social security contribution or premium, right? Why? So what does it mean? You are pooling the risk through payment of contributions. In this case, you will buy the membership of insurance. What if something happens? BPJS will protect you. So this is the concept. Employer will also contribute to jointly pool the risk. What about the government? Where's the source of government funds? Everyone pays tax in these countries, so that's a source of funds of the government, Bantuan Sosial. So if the government is only the financer of social protection social security scheme, we call it Bantuan Sosial in this country, right? Yeah? So, but it still pool the risk, right? Because everyone pay tax to the government. And then the government use that tax to help the poor people, for example, by paying benefits. So we call it risk pooling, okay. You have a beautiful concept in Indonesia, gotong royong. So it's a similar concept. Put money together and then help each other. Once something happens, that person can access to the benefit. That is the principle. And then I find it very similar to gotong royong principle. I'm foreigner, but I don't know how you find. It may be similar or not. Next, please, Pa. So what is the benefit? There are usually two patterns, in kind or cash. As I explained, if you're unemployed, the BPJS pay money to you. But at the same time, you will receive services, job interview services, or they may introduce new employers, job opportunities. That's services. If you are disabled because of work injuries, you will receive a free medical care. That is another in-kind services. Or disability devices, that's another in-kind. So two forms of benefits. Next, please, Bob. Next, please. Yeah, next. Next one, please. Next, please. Sorry. Next one. Yeah, so as I explained, the international labor standards, minimum social security standards require the 9 social security benefits. I showed the illustration in the previous slides. And Indonesia has 7 benefits out of 9. Still, Indonesia doesn't have a maternity and the sickness benefits as part of a social security system. But different schemes cover different benefits. JKN, Jaminan Kesehatan Nasional, provide medical care. And JKP, Jaminan Kehilangan Pekerja, provides unemployment benefits. Jaminan Pension by BPJS Ketenagakerjaan provide old age benefits. When you retire, you receive benefits. And Jaminan Hari Tua, that's another one. And Jaminan JKK and JKM, another one, for employment injury benefit and death benefits, right? Next, please. Next one. Yeah. If we look at the other countries' cases in Asia, Indonesia is not doing too bad. Vietnam and Thailand have all 9 schemes. So they are slightly more advanced than Indonesia. The other countries, including Philippines, Laos, PDR, Cambodia, or any other countries you see here have also missing schemes. So from my job is to provide advice to the government of Indonesia to create missing schemes, sickness benefits and maternity benefits as part of BPJS employment, for example. That's one way, because there are no law, policies, schemes ready for Indonesia yet for these schemes. As you may know, Indonesia's social security system is regulated by the SJSN law 2014, number 40. Yeah? And more detailed government regulations are established in 2015. You can check Google maybe, number 44 to 46 on JKK, JKM, and then also Jaminan pension and the Jaminan hari tua. If you see these in detail, regulations, you will see, what's the condition, what is the benefits amount. So our job here, as an ILO staff members is to check the policies. These government regulations, policies are in line with the international labor standards, international social security standards. As you see, the scheme is ready. You see the circle, it means scheme is available. But what about the quality of schemes? When we assess the quality of schemes, we have international social security standards agreed by 190 member states, right? So I have a textbook, guidebook, and then double check by comparing these national laws, regulations, and internationally agreed standards. Next, please. Next. So I don't think there are people who like numbers here because this is the Faculty of Law, but let me show you some numbers. This is, this is the coverage figures. How many percentage of children are receiving social security benefits in Asia, Southeast Asia? Indonesia is somewhere at the middle or up higher than any other countries, right? 25% of children receiving some kinds of social security benefits. It's because the program called PKH, the government Ministry of Social Affairs is providing child benefits, cash benefits to poor children using a lot of tax. And that's why the figure here is slightly higher, but still 26%. Next, please. What about a mother who has newborn babies? 28%, which is lower than any other countries you see. In Asia, about 50% of mothers are receiving any kind of cash benefits during maternity leave, but Indonesia shows low. Why? Because if you work in big companies, you may be able to enjoy maternity leave with full payment because large companies comply with the law, labor law. But 99% of companies in Indonesia are small and micro enterprises. How can we make sure all of them will individually pay pregnant women? So it's not possible in the ILO sense. That's why the social security, the government should provide the support, not directly from employers. Next, please. This is about disability benefits. Only 2% of Indonesian persons with disabilities receiving social security benefits. Disability benefits are only provided by the BPJS Jaminan pension and the JKK scheme for now. 2%, which is one of the lowest in Southeast Asia. So that's why I have a lot of work to do with the government. Next, please. Unemployment benefits. I don't have the latest data. Indonesia started last year. So maybe next year when I revise these slides, you will see the figures. Vietnam and Thailand started unemployment benefits more than 10 years ago. So their progress is much faster than Indonesia. Next. This is about the share of persons who have work injuries and they receive any kinds of social security benefits. 23% of them receive benefits. But again, the progress is not as impressive as Indonesia's economy. Indonesia's economic growth is impressive. I heard from the government officials, Indonesia will become number 4 economy in the world in 20 years' time, 2045, golden Indonesia. But what about Social Security? That's why we need to have a stronger voice. That's why I'm here, actually, to try to talk to students, because you will be the future leaders, right? And the Minister of Manpower, my counterpart is the Minister of Manpower. Many directors give me a phone call, Ippei, what shall we do with the Social Security? We have a lot of problems. Yes, you have a lot of problems. So I'm happy to help you. But at the same time, they also ask me, I understand the problems, but I need to retire next year. So please educate students or young people who may become the future leaders or policymakers. So that's why I talked to her and I tried to come to UGM sometime. And so I'm happy to be here. Next, please. Yeah, sorry for side talk. Old age pensions. Does anyone know among your family members who receive regular income from the government after retirement? Do you have anyone? If so, probably they are receiving from a private pension plan or TNI, former military officials or police officers or former government officers. These are only the categories of workers today receiving pensions from the Social Security system by design. Until 2030, BPJS will not start paying pensions by design. So you see the figures here. Only 15% of older persons above retirement age receiving cash benefits from Social Security system in Indonesia today. This is the data 2020, not today. But compared to other countries in Southeast Asia, the progress is not as impressive as economic growth. So for inclusive growth, we have more work to do. Next, please. This is the share of working age population, labor forces, who are currently contributing to BPJS. What does it mean? If you are not a member and are paying contribution today to Jaminan pension, you will not receive pensions in the future, right? So this is the figure that indicates significant number of older persons will retire without pension, because currently only 16% of labor force are paying contributions to pension schemes. So what about the rest of 84% of labor forces? They probably only have a savings or a private pension plan. But is that possible for everyone? I mean, I'm talking about everyone. Those who work in the rice field, paddy fields, can they have enough saving for living after 20 years when they retire? It's usually not possible. That's why many countries in Southeast Asia are now prioritizing to establish Jaminan Pension National or whatever, so on, pension schemes. Next, please. Next. So there are a lot of schemes, but there are a lot of problems you can see from some statistics here, right? Coverage gap. So when I talk about the coverage gap of Social Security, many people say, oh, BPJS is not doing a good job. The government is not implementing the program very well. Maybe true, but I'm not sure if that's only the reasons. For example, this is one major factors that I see. You are from the Faculty of Law, so you may be interested in this. JKM are mandatory for all employers, workers to register themselves if they start working, right? Mandatory by law, regulation. What about unemployment insurance? JKP, JHT, Jaminan pension. If a Jaminan pension is compulsory for only large and medium enterprises. Small enterprises, micro enterprises, if they don't want, they don't have to register their employees. If you have an option, and if you are employers, would you register your employees? No. In reality, no, because if you register your employee with BPJS as an employer, you will have to pay. Business people see it as a cost. So of course you want to cost cut if it's voluntary. If you have an option, of course I don't want to pay, right? So what is the problem here? It's not the problem of BPJS, if you look at this aspect, because the government regulations, policies adopted already allow employers to avoid registering their employees. So if you have like research activities here, you can probably have a look at these regulations and you can validate if I'm saying right or wrong. I read all the government regulations and this is the result of the mapping. But you will see some legal restrictions behind the low coverage figures that I showed you. Why Indonesia's progress is so little compared to other countries. It's not only about the implementation, coordination, but also some legal framework doesn't allow people to join the system. That's one indication. And on the very right-hand side, you see the non-wage earners, self-employed. Most of the schemes don't allow them to join. Pension? No. There are about 50 million workers working in a company in this country, and another 50 million workers working without employers, self-employed, or Grab taxi drivers, Gojek, street vendors, Kaki Lima, for example. They're self-employed. And then if they go to the BPJS offices, BPJS officials say, no, you're self-employed, you cannot be a member of a pension, Jaminan pension, because the law, regulation doesn't allow them to join the scheme. But is that really fair for everyone? I have a big question mark. So for on these kind of things, I continuously, giving advice to the government. But if I'm alone, I cannot fight this war, right? So try to create more friends, including you. That's why I'm here, and then I also come to the other public speech and the discussions many times. And the government also calls me to present these kind of things, more detailed things, yeah? Today is the introduction to social protection. Next, please. Next, please, I think it's okay. Sorry, can you go back one slide? Yeah. I don't want to talk many in detail, but just to give you an idea, if you are unemployed, if you're fired, what benefits can you expect? It's already written in the regulations, clearly. It's not like a lottery, okay? Government will not decide how much you will get if you're fired. It's already written in the regulations. So BPJS just implement, just pay. based on the criteria. It's already determined. So criteria is very simple. If you pay 12-month contributions during your employment, you will receive the benefits if you are fired. And then the benefit amount is 45% of your monthly wage, up to 3 months. And after that, the amount will be reduced to 25% of your monthly wage, up to 6 months in total. So that's the unemployment benefits. So this is the real example of Social Security. Now I'm talking to the Ministry of Manpower and Bappenas and all the government officials. A lot of problems, there are a lot of problems in the JKP, but we are still talking about it, but it's step by step. But just to give you an example here. So that's about the benefits of JKP. Next, please. But it's not free lunch. As I said earlier, the contribution, you need to pay contribution to be a member. You cannot say, I want benefits, I don't want to pay. You need to pay in a sunny day, and you will get the benefit in a rainy day. That's the golden rule of Social Security, okay? So if you don't experience rainy day, you will continue paying. And some people complain, I only pay, I will never get benefits. But is that, does it sound weird or correct? You cannot complain in such ways in the Social Security, if you understand the Social Security, because you didn't experience a rainy day, so you're lucky. It didn't happen to you, or you want to experience injury or not. So the concept is not to make you rich, but if something happens, you get benefits without fears, without worry from the Social Security, government, BPJS. That's the concept. The contribution rate is usually calculated based on your certain percentage of your monthly earnings. In the case of Jaminan pension, workers need to pay 1%, and the employer pay 2% every month. The reason why many people want to work in a company is that outside your monthly salary, employers pay 2% more for you. In this case, in total, if you calculate if you sum up all the contributions for employers pay 10% more outside, in addition to your salary. So of course, many people want to work in a company in the welfare states. I'm not sure in Indonesia. Indonesia's social security system is still being developed. So many leaders, workers' leaders, may not understand the real benefits of social security scheme. So whenever I said, okay, workers' colleagues, you cannot say, I want to benefit, I don't want to pay. If you want benefits, you need to pay contributions. But I get criticism every time when I say this. But if you're smart enough and understand social security schemes, you can tell what is the logic behind here. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, before I hand over to you, I think I will give one concrete example of what we are currently working on using the international labor standards and how we provide advice to the government. Next, please. International labor standards. If you Google Convention 183, you will see the Convention on maternity protection on the ILO website. What does it say? There are mainly 4 building blocks of maternity protection scheme, maternity benefit schemes. First, coverage and the criteria, benefit amounts, and the benefit duration, how many months you will receive. So these are the international standards. Next, please. By the labor law in Indonesia, 2003, number 13, employers are obliged to give 3-month maternity leave, 1.5 months before and after giving birth by the labor law. And all the employees who work in the companies must have this workers' rights to claim. And then the employers must pay 100% of monthly wage, even though a women worker who doesn't work during maternity leave. Employers must pay 3 months, 100% of salary. What does the International Labor Standards Convention 183 says here? Compared to the national law here, all female employees should receive the benefits, that's fine. 3 months, 14 weeks, that's fine. 67% of monthly wage. Indonesian labor law provide a higher one, so that's okay. But the problem is at the bottom, who will pay? The ILO standards said the employers shouldn't pay directly to their employees. That benefit should be paid through Social Security system. That's only the difference, but that's a big difference. Because if you work in the nasty and employers who cannot afford to pay, and then they cannot receive benefits, or women need to negotiate with their individual employers, right? So, but that's not fair. If someone needs to negotiate to realize their rights, or people who work in big companies don't have to negotiate because their companies usually comply. So, based on the convention we provide the government, you need to replace these labor law provisions by this new social security scheme under the BPJS employment, for example. Next, please. But again, we cannot say, I want benefits, but I don't want to pay. There are only 2 options to finance such benefits, as I said earlier. 1, you pay tax to the government, or 2, pay contributions to BPJS employment. Otherwise, who will pay? No one can pay in this country. At the end, citizens of Indonesia will pay in any ways, right? Through the government or through the BPJS. Next, please. It's difficult mathematics, so I will not present this. We work with the actuaries, mathematicians, to calculate how much it would cost. So it's always a balance. If you want more benefits, contribution rate will increase. If you want longer durations, contribution rate will be higher. So that's the logic here, simple logic. And I don't know if you know, any of you knows, the parliament submitted the bill on maternal and child welfare in December 2021. And it's been in the public discussions, consultations for 2 years. And we are still working on it, providing support, comments, input to the government. So the bill wants to extend the maternity leave from the current 3 months to 6 months in the future, and paternity leave from the current 2 months to 40 days in the future. Who will pay? If there is no change, employers will have to pay by the labor law, because the labor law says employers will have to pay monthly salary for 3 to 6 months in the future. Of course, the business will complain and against, and more workers will have to negotiate with their employers if employers cannot afford to pay in the future. So we calculated all these options. So if you want to keep that high benefit as the bill proposed by the parliament, BPJS will have to collect 1.3% contributions. But if not, at least 0.5% contribution would be sufficient. That means if your salary is 3 million rupiah per month, your employer will pay 7,500 rupiah, and you pay 705,000 rupiah. And if you get pregnant and take maternity leave for 3 months, you will get about 70% of your monthly salary for 3 months without negotiating with the employers. So that's this kind of mathematical discussion comes after the legal discussions in our daily work. Next, please. I think I stop here. Yeah, this is the recommendation we submitted to the government, but I think I stop here and take any questions, discussions, and yeah, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Pak Ippei. I will let you sit down first. Before I open the discussion to the floor, I actually have one big question for you after hearing your presentation. In your opinion, after looking at the current social security regulation in Indonesia and then looking at how the effectivity rate and comparing it with other countries, do you think that with the current regulation of social security that we have right now, like without any change, there is a possibility that our social security effectivity will improve? Is there a possibility that it will improve, or do you think that this number that you show us, the effectivity of the current one that we have, is the maximum that we can get from the current regulation?
Yeah, of course, the figure will start to improve because BPJS is making efforts and the government puts a lot of pressure to BPJS, probably. If we look at the BPS stats, there are 55 million working age population in the company, wage employees today, PU, right? PU in Bahasa Indonesia. And the BPJS is currently covering, I think, 30 million something among them. So there are 20 million gap, right? If BPJS try to chase individual employers who do not comply with this legal requirements, of course BPJS can increase. But that will be the maximum. But as I said, the legal barriers, legal restrictions imposed for other schemes. So if we look at other schemes with the legal restrictions, the BPJS cannot do much on that. So at some point, it needs to be changed.
Okay, so there is still a possibility for increase on the current scheme, but then if we want to make sure that everyone is protected, there still needs to be improvement on the regulation instead of just like looking at the current regulation. Is that what you're saying? Okay, thank you, Pak Ippei, for an interesting discussions. I hope there will be a questions coming from the student. I will open the floor for like first. Okay, sure. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think 4 question is fine for now. Is there a microphone? You can boleh tanya pakai bahasa Indonesia. It's okay.
Okay, so I will be asking in English. Firstly, my name is Camila, and my question will be that these social protection are provided through regulation in which the implementation, most of the cases, apply to the employers or workers that work for administered workplace. In reality, a lot of developing countries like Indonesia still have many informal, quote-unquote, not administered workplace or unofficially recognized by government, or in another cases of UMKM or MSME, where they are most likely unregistered for social protection, but they are working under the same risk just like the other workers who are working in administered and monitored workplace. Therefore, they are more vulnerable than other workers, as the ILO Convention probably has a similar approach, whether it is developing or developed country. They usually have the same baseline, which is ILO Convention. Do we need to do different approach in making sure that these informal workers in developing countries still can get protected and having the same safety in doing their jobs? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, Camila. Can you tell me from which class are you? Andy is
Wait.
interesting to
I
know.
forget which class I'm in. I think I'm in class D.
Class D. Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Camila. Do you want to answer right away, or should I pull the question first? Pull the question? Okay. So the next question, please. Oh. Yeah, I think someone did.
Mbak Nabila and Mr. Sugra, my name is Amma and I'm from class E. I'm particularly interested to know about maternal leave, and particularly in this case is paternal leave, because I noticed that the discussion is heavily based on women and maternity leave, and I didn't see any discussion about paternity leave. I want to know ILO's position in this in relation to Indonesia, and if ILO views that this is something necessary, because I do believe that it is put heavily on women to ensure protection for children. It is, I believe, is harmful for women, at the same time is harmful for the family, because it leaves sole breadwinner for men. At the same time, we know Indonesia has a crisis of that both, at least men and women, have to provide. And in this case, is the government making any progress in making sure that both women and men are able to provide for children equally? Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please. Yes, thank you.
Hello, my name is Tia from Master in Law Programs. First, I wanted to apologize in advance because I did a little background check on Mr. Ippei Tsuruga, and because I want to know your today's speakers more. So you got tons of experience as you've watched a lot of work scheme in several countries and their related issue. So related to pension scheme, I wanted to know, and I'm curious about your point of view based on your experience right now. So the government are using the pegawai pemerintah dengan perjanjian kerja or government worker with agreement scheme to slowly replace the existing civil servant. So both of them have the same amount of work, working hours, and so on. But the new scheme one is not gonna get their pension. As we already know, the existing civil servant pension scheme is not that enough to cover the life cost. So usually retired parents are gonna depend on their child, and just like a domino, falling one in one. And this leads to what you call it sandwich generation. So how do you see this issue? Thank you.
I think like it's just one of the examples. Like even for the government official, they go straight into like the new types that won't get any pension. So there will be a lot more people who won't get any pension. Okay. Oh, sorry. Next question, the last one. I think like. Oh, it's the same one? Okay, so the last question is the same. So I will recap the question if you mind. So the first question is asking about the different approach as a developing country, since we have more informal worker. Do you think that we need to, is there a different approach coming from ILO, from Indonesia's perspective, in Indonesia's context? The second one is more into ILO's view on paternity leave. Should it be mandatory? Should it be optional? What's the view on that? And the last one is the pensions. Even for a government official who used to get a pensions, now we move towards the more contracted government workers who won't get any pensions, or even though they got a pensions, it won't be a lot. So there will be a lot more younger generations who needs to take care of the old person, like of their old parents, because they won't get enough pensions, and it will lead to the sandwich generation. So what's your thought on that? I'll give the floor to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting questions. I hope I can receive these questions in Jakarta. I never received it.
Better question here, right?
Yeah. I think okay, let me highlight in this way. I'm coming from Japan, saya orang Japan. And but my grandfather's generations, there were lots of informal economy. But at the same time, Japan started a pension system in 1950s. But at that time, my grandfather was very poor, I would say. He was a first-generation farmer. But today, he has regular income from the pension system. He was a farmer. Can you imagine? Farmer here in the paddy field, in 20 years' time, will have pensions. And then I don't give him money, he gives me money. So this is the future of the welfare states. Japan also has a problem now, but what I would like to highlight here is that I think it is not very unique that Indonesia has the large informal economy now, because every country used to have informal economy, big informal economy. But what is unique here is that what kinds of informal economy you have, right? Street vendors, and then nowadays, Grab drivers, we call them informal workers, right? Because they don't work in the companies. So generally speaking, there are two ways to close the gap from other countries' experience. One, if they have employers, like Grab, for example, can we consider Grab company as an employer? Some countries recently moved towards that direction. But again, there are conflicts between the business and rights of workers here. So it needs to be discussed and agreed in the country. And the same applies to, I think, one of really good question raised by the lady there on the pension. There are a lot of non-civil servant contract workers working in the government. And not only in the government, there are a lot of PKWT in Indonesia. And I'm not sure how many of them can actually be treated well to have Social Security coverage. We don't have figures on that. But they clearly have an employer and an employee relationship because they receive a salary from their employer, right? So one approach here is that as long as workers have an employer-employee relationship, they should be registered with the Social Security. And if the law and the regulations don't allow that, these laws and regulations need to change. If they have an employer-employee relationship, the extension of Social Security coverage is fairly easy. It's just a matter of decision to cover them or not to cover them, or give them options. But as I explained, if you give the options by regulations, it never happens. So Social Security law regulations must stipulate mandatory provisions for the coverage. Who need to be covered on a mandatory basis? If you give options, such schemes become something like private insurance. You have an option to choose. But Jaminan Sosial is more like a gotonoyon, as I explained. If you are community members, you must contribute, right? So that's a different concept. So that's the first approach. If you have employee-employer relationship, it's just a matter of legal change, policy change, and an enforcement of the law and the regulations. The second approach is that some kinds of universal schemes are needed. What does it mean by universal scheme? If you don't work in the company, some schemes are not available in Indonesia, like pension not available for self-employed now, right? In Japan, it's mandatory for all citizens to register in the pension scheme, with or without your employment. If you're unemployed, you still need to contribute to pension system. It's the obligation of citizens of Japan. In Indonesia, it's voluntary. Again, you have a choice. If you are self-employed, if you are self-employed, you are not allowed to participate in Jaminan pension. It's a voluntary option. If you want to participate in Jaminan Haritowa, you can still contribute to BPJS and become members, even though you are self-employed. But if you give an option, as I said, people will not contribute because they want to save in a bank account, and then they believe they are good enough to invest and plan for their retirement themselves. But it's not happening. So there are two approaches. We need to apply mandatory provisions for everyone, or provide the benefits through the taxations. Like the government provides universal pension, that means give 500,000 rupiah for everyone if you become older than 65, for example. There are such schemes. So the government will take care of you using a tax. That's one approach. But Indonesia is a big country. I don't know if Indonesia can do that to cover, I don't know how many million, 70 million in 20 years' time, above 65 years old. Then the next generation will have to pay more tax because the government will have to pay more pensions to more people in the future. So there are two approaches, as I said, in general. So that's a lesson learned from international experience. I think I answered two questions at the same time. And the last question is on the maternity leave. Yes. In fact, the ILO doesn't have international labor standards on paternity leave in specific. But of course, if we provide an advice, we provide the recommendations on the role of fathers. It's a joint responsibility of mother and fathers to raise children. So some countries also have a parental leave in addition to maternity and paternity leaves. Japan, Korea, I think Canada also have such scheme. And it's also, in case of Japan, I think 1 year, you can take 1 year parental leave after maternity leaves or paternity leave. Then some portion of salary will be paid by the Social Security scheme. If Indonesia want to go for that direction, I'm more than happy to support. But I think there are, more voices needed to the central government to do that. I don't see such extreme discussions. It's not extreme in my sense, but it probably is still extreme in the Indonesian policymakers' sense. But I support that idea.
Ippei. A little bit follow-up from me. I want to following up to you. So if you're saying that, if you give an example of Japan when they used to have an informal, way bigger informal sector, and then one of the things about Social Security still they still make it mandatory for all workers, no matter whether they're coming from a formal or informal sector, to enroll in the pension scheme. Yeah. And you said that it's a duty of the citizen, but is there a sanction if you're not doing that? Because I'm just thinking, if we want to put it, if you want to make it in Indonesia, how do you think that it will work? Does it will work like BPJS Kesehatan? Will you have to enroll? Actually everyone needs to enroll? Or is there any other scheme that you think about?
Yeah, we need to understand the value of life here and the cultural aspect, religious aspect, and many aspects. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution here. But I've been working for Indonesia and talking about the cultural values every time. So I have some sense. Generally speaking, Indonesian citizens like to have freedom, if I'm not mistaken. freedom means you don't want to be binded by any mandatory schemes, for example. It's better to have less mandatory things, obligations by the states, government, right? People don't want to pay more tax, of course. No one wants to pay more tax. Don't want to pay more contributions. Don't want to stop the traffic lights. That's another thing. But generally speaking, I find that there is strong resistance from the general public to have anything mandatory. But again, in Japan, in the case of Japan, people are more, how can I say? They don't like to follow, but they follow. So there are different mindsets over there. People complain, but still follow there. Okay? And then, so more, let me say in a more professional way. So, okay, in some countries, especially in Japan, in this case, yes, local authority will come to your house or block your bank account. They have the right to do that. But there are steps, you know. They don't immediately block your bank accounts. They visit you and then, oh, okay, what's wrong with you? We didn't get payment this month. And do you have any difficulties? If you don't have earnings, we have these social security schemes, and then if you cannot get a job, you have this social security scheme to support you. That's the first step. If this person is a really bad guy and has a lot of money and doesn't want to pay, and then the local authority find it out, and they have the authority to withhold the property, or if it's business, suspend business licenses, or in the worst case scenario, it's a criminal sanction there. So there needs to be a balance between the penalty. The mandatory application without penalties don't work because you don't have any incentive to follow the law, right? So usually administrative sanctions, criminal sanctions are there, and then enforcement is necessary. But again, it's my question to you. What do you like in Indonesia? Because it's about the cultural values and people's mindsets. But it's very important to reduce the number of free riders. I want benefits, but I don't want to pay. That's why enforcement and sanctions, penalties are needed at some point. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Ippei, for the answer. Okay, we still have time for more question. Masih ada waktu untuk pertanyaan. Kalau ada yang mau bertanya, boleh. Ada pertanyaan? One? No? I think we ran out of question. Okay. Oh, there is one question.
Okay, thank you very much. Karena tadi Pak Ippei minta bahasa Indonesia, saya pakai bahasa Indonesia. Jadi perkenalkan, saya Sosial Dharma, salah satu pengajar di Hukum Ketenagakerjaan. Menarik ketika Pak Ippei menjelaskan mengenai konsep dari social security dan security protections, gitu ya. Di slide awal itu dikatakan bahwa social security and security protection atau perlindungan sosial itu sesuatu yang sama, gitu ya, sesuatu yang sama. Tetapi kalau misalnya kita belajar mengenai konteks perlindungan sosial, ya, social security, and then perlindungan sosial dan perlindungan, ya, kedua hal itu menurut saya itu adalah kedua konsep yang berbeda, ya, antara social protections and social security, jaminan sosial dan perlindungan sosial. Itu dua hal yang berbeda. Kalau kita bicara mengenai social security, itu adalah konsep-konsep ataupun hal-hal yang tadi dijelaskan oleh Pak Ippei terkait dengan program-program yang dilaksanakan oleh jaminan sosial, ya BPJS, baik itu BPJS Ketenagakerjaan maupun BPJS Kesehatan. Tetapi ketika kita bicara mengenai perlindungan sosial, ya, perlindungan sosial itu lebih kepada program-program yang sifatnya sementara dan menyasar kepada hal-hal yang sifatnya kebencanaan. Itu yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua, mungkin juga ini hanya menegaskan bahwa sebenarnya kalau kita bicara mengenai kondisi Indonesia, mungkin Pak Ippei sudah mengetahui bahwa Indonesia itu sangat beragam. Artinya tidak bisa dilihat dari satu sudut pandang. Misalnya memang ada kewajiban secara umum, ada kewajiban untuk menjadi peserta dari BPJS, tetapi di lain sisi ada ketentuan-ketentuan, misalnya yang terbaru kaitan dengan Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja yang mengecualikan usaha mikro dan kecil dalam hal ini, misalnya tidak perlu membayar upah sesuai dengan upah minimum. Itu sesuatu yang sifatnya mandatori, ya, seharusnya ya menjadi sesuatu yang menjadi hak yang seharusnya diterima oleh semua pekerja, tetapi di dalam undang-undang ini dikecualikan. Nah, di satu hal ini saja Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja mengecualikan segmen tertentu, apalagi ketika kita bicara mengenai dalam hal ini adalah memaksa, dalam tanda kutip memaksa pihak-pihak ataupun sektor di usaha kecil mikro tadi untuk mengikuti program BPJS. Jadi memang sesuatu yang di satu sisi mengedepankan jaminan sosial, tetapi di sisi lain dari sisi kebijakan malah itu menggembosi atau itu malah mengurangi gitu ya, mengurangi esensi dari jaminan sosial itu sendiri. Kemudian yang terakhir, apakah ketika kita bicara mengenai konsep social security ataupun jaminan sosial, apakah jaminan sosial itu hanya program-program yang dilaksanakan oleh pemerintah, ataukah sebenarnya jaminan sosial, ya secara esensi jaminan sosial dapat pula dilakukan oleh pihak-pihak tertentu, misalnya perusahaan melalui skema tadi menarik ketika Pak Ippei menyampaikan data bahwa ada 2 skema jaminan sosial yang belum dilaksanakan oleh Indonesia, misalnya maternity leave dan unemployment leave, ya, ada 2 itu. Padahal kalau kita lihat di dalam konteks undang-undang yang sudah juga disebutkan oleh Pak Ippei, Undang-Undang 13 mengatur mengenai maternity leave, ya, 1,5 bulan sebelum, 1,5 bulan sesudah. Kemudian bicara juga mengenai konsep pesangon, severance pay, ya, di Indonesia yang diatur dalam Undang-Undang 13. Yang sebenarnya sudah dilaksanakan, ya, sejak lama gitu, ya. Nah, apakah hal ini tidak bisa dikatakan secara esensi adalah bentuk dari jaminan sosial? Dan yang terakhir mungkin, ya ini terakhir lagi, bahwa konsep jaminan sosial yang konsepnya universal coverage di Indonesia ini kan sangat baru, ya, dan sangat baru efektif dilaksanakan di 2015. Undang-undangnya ada di 2011 melalui Undang-Undang BPJS 24 2011, tetapi effectively berjalan itu di 2015. Artinya baru 8 tahun konsep jaminan sosial yang sifatnya universal ini dilaksanakan. Apakah ini mungkin juga menurut saya adalah suatu, ya mungkin tidak dikatakan prestasi yang besar, tetapi setidaknya sudah menunjukkan bahwa Indonesia melakukan effort, melakukan usaha-usaha untuk mewujudkan konsep jaminan sosial yang sifatnya universal. Mungkin itu beberapa hal yang mungkin saya tanyakan atau saya konfirmasi. Terima kasih.
Sandi, ada pertanyaan lain? Biar sekaligus. 1, 2, 3. Nggak ada, ya? Oke, I'll give it to Pak Ippei. Should I recap the question? Okay, so the first question is, Pandi is challenging your idea of your definition of social security and social protections, because he believes, especially in Indonesian context, it's a little bit different between Jaminan Sosial and Perlindungan Sosial. What's your thought on that? And the second one is that he also questioned whether the idea that the social protection can only be done by the government it cannot be like it's just like that. It cannot be changed, because like in a way you give an example that maternity protection is not protected. It's a branch of social security that we don't have it yet, even though we do have a maternity protections, even though it's covered by employer liability. Like, can it be said that in a way there is already a social security on the maternity benefit, or what's your thought on that? And the last one is, since the universal coverage on social security in Indonesia is still quite new, do you think that what we already have here is already like a very good effort, looking at we only have it like in around 8 years, like the coverage and everything? It's still new, like, yeah. So that's basically the 3 questions that he asked. Please.
Thank you. Maybe start from the last questions. I think in 2015, the BPJS introduced the new scheme, Jaminan pension. That was a good step forward, in our view. By scheme design, it's more sophisticated, and then also it's a good initiative. Indonesia definitely needs to have this scheme, new pension scheme. So it's on the right track, and it's the right time now to revisit and discuss again, to think further for next 20 years. What changes is needed? It's not a perfect scheme yet, and so I think it's the right track. And for the last 10 years, I think Indonesia has been doing very well. New scheme on JKP was introduced, and JKK was reformed. And JP, Jaminan pension, was newly introduced. Now the government is discussing maternity benefit, and then also reforming Jaminan Hari Tua. So there are a lot of reforms, so I'm quite busy. But it's already a good sign. There are political will to improve, and then many policymakers are working on these issues. And on maternity protection issues, I mean, I stick to the Social Security International Labor Standards. And from that perspective, we call it employer's liability. If employers are obliged directly to pay maternity leave cash benefits to their employees, it's not Social Security by definition by the International Labor Standards. So that's why it clearly states employers shouldn't pay the sole shouldn't directly pay to their employees of these benefits. So in that sense, I think I have a justifications to provide advice to Indonesia to replace it by maternity benefits as part of social security system. Yeah, that's my answer. But I don't think there are no more questions. Huh?
About social security and social protections, like, is it actually the same?
Yeah, each countries can nationally define, create the national definitions. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. So I don't have any objections or views to that. If Indonesia describe it Bantun Sosial and Jaminan Sosial, I'm fine. But I just wanted to highlight here, particularly to the students, is that if you read international literatures, don't get confused. Each country has a different definitions, and you need to also understand the Indonesian definitions as well. That's why I wanted to highlight. On the ILO report, we don't differentiate these terminologies. Yeah. Maybe before I close, just 5 minutes. Is that okay? Since I talked to the young people here, I just want to give you one very important priority issues for you. Maybe I stand there, actually. in next 20 years, Indonesia will become kind of much older and older. I mean, Indonesian population will become much older and older. This is the fastest aging pace in the world and history, fastest. We have an indicators, percentage of, if the percentage of older persons among the populations is above 14%, that society is called aged society. If it's above 7%, it's called aging society. This year, Indonesia will be joining an aging society group this year. And Indonesia will become aged society in 2044 in our estimate. We only have 20 years to go. Okay? So Indonesia's demographic pyramid is still in a somehow triangle shape. But if you go back to your home, you ask your parents, how many brothers did you have? Probably you already know, right? How many relatives they have? And then how many brothers you have? So you already probably see much fewer children in your generations. If we look at the BPS statistics in this year, there are about I think, forgot the figure, sorry, 27 million older persons above 60 this year, around there, okay? And then in 2050, 40, that number will grow to 70 million. So it becomes more than double older persons. And then our demographic projection shows the number of working age populations will not increase that much. Slightly, it stays around about 200 million working age population from 20 to 60. So what will happen in 20 years' time? Well, that the ratio between working age population and the older person will get worse and worse. Today, there are six working age population, young people, including you, for one older persons. So now we can support with the 6 persons and then, no, sorry, we can support with the 6 colleagues here to 1 older person today. But in 20, 30 years' time, that number will become only 3 persons supporting 1 older person. So the sandwich generations, that will be you, in my view, will have more care responsibility and burdens if there are no social security system supporting your parents and your grandparents. And fortunately, good news for you is that your parents and the grandparents will live longer than past. So it means, for example, my parents are now 70 years old, and my grandfather is 97, still alive, and they may live until 90 years old. I don't pay them. My brother lives in Japan, working in a hospital as a pharmacist, selling medicines. And his yearly earning is about 400 juta rupiah, which is slightly better than the average in Japan today. And then my parents are spending 400 million every year. They don't have, but they have income from the pension in Japan. They receive 400 million from Social Security and then spend 400 million. So they don't use the savings. They don't need money from my brother. So I asked my brother, if there is no Social Security, do you think you can pay half of your salary to your parents? Half. And then I pay half to my parents, right? Because they need 400 million every year. And then we find it's not possible. But I'm afraid that will happen in Indonesia if there is no change today for pension. So if you see the media news on the pension, retirement, older persons issues, it's about you. That's my point. Because you probably don't see it as your problem, but I see it as your problem because I work on this subject as well. And whenever I talk about these issues, whenever I've been called by the government, I don't see any young people in the room, and most of them will be the recipients of the benefits. So they don't think much about the future of Indonesia, but you'll be the future of Indonesia. So I just wanted to let you know, you probably need to have a close look at these discussions, the hot discussions going on this year. And probably you will have an opportunity to see any media news. There are a lot of discussions on pensions. That is about you. But very few young people may understand this or may be interested in. But this will definitely happen. I mean, if the pension discussion doesn't go very well, that will impact your life in 20 years' time when you become 40 years old, 50 years old. Because you will have to take care of your children, yourself, and your parents. Sorry to close with the very pessimistic talk, but I thought it would be important to let you know. Important discussion is going on, and it's about you. So please pay attention to the news, and then, if possible, participate in any public discussions. If you have opportunity again to talk to the president candidates, probably that's another opportunity to raise this issue. It's already finished 2 days ago, no? But if you have any other opportunities, I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Ippei. Let's give a round of applause to Pak Ippei. I think that's a very important closing message that I ever heard, because like as a young people here, like we don't really talk much about pension, like we don't even know what pension is, like what is the concept of pension, we don't really know. But when you're saying that, that's actually our issue that makes me thinking about who will take care of my parents and who will take care of you guys' parents and everything. So I think it's a very strong, important message. So thank you very much again, Pak Ippei, for sharing your wisdom with us. Next time there is another presidential candidate coming, maybe we can ask them about their plan on pension, like what needs to be, what needs to change in our social security, because turns out it's a very important thing to talk about. So again, thank you very much. Again, let's give one more round of applause to Pak Ippei. Maybe next year you will come again and talk with a different student. It's an interesting bunch of young people here that we have, right?
If I'm still employed.
Okay, so thank you, and I'll give the floor back to Mbak Nailo. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Ippei, for coming to our campus today. It's very enlightening us today. Terima kasih Mas Mbak semua yang sudah bersedia hadir sampai akhir di sini. Mungkin tadi saya menjanjikan akan randomly memanggil nama kalian, tetapi unfortunately memang ada beberapa teman-teman yang sudah terjadwal kelas lain. Jadi sepertinya tidak fair kalau saya manggil satu persatu begitu ya. Bukan saya wan prestasi ya teman-teman, tapi demi kebaikan bersama. Oke, saya akan tutup sesinya hari ini. Sekali lagi semoga mendapatkan ilmu yang bermanfaat dan barokah buat semua. Terima kasih banyak, selamat siang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.